Hey David, how you doing?
Very good, Nick. How are you?
Yeah, good. Big day. I mean, you've got a new instrument, right?
Yeah, here we are. Superbooth's becoming kind of a special show for us. Actually, we came here in 2022 to bring Oberheim back to life with the OBX8 that you see just over my shoulder. We then came back in 23 with the desktop module version. Everyone very excited about that. But there was one thing still that Tom in particular was very keen to do, which was to make an Oberheim that truly captured the authentic sound, but was just much more accessible, affordable for people, and in a package that anyone could get into, which is why we are here this year with TEO-5.
And there it is.
TEO standing for Thomas Elroy Oberheim.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that was what the E was stood for.
You know, he's maybe not proud of the Elroy name, but it's his name, so we're rolling.
Well, it's totally in print now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
so it's a bit of a burn as well. Excellent. Never too old to be
You
burned.
can think of it that way. Yeah. So this is obviously a package that fully delivers the Oberheim sound. It's got the SEM filters in there. It sounds amazing. It's got a very contemporary twist, though, as you'll hear when Chris starts to play. It's really got a nice kind of modern sound to it, and can do all the things that you'd want from an Oberheim, plus a whole lot more.
And we're going to have Chris magically appear when I bring the camera up. So Chris,
hey.
Exciting. You get to demo a new synth. Hope you've had a bit of time.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I've had a bit of time to play around with this, and it's it's really, really sweet. As David was saying, it's an Oberheim through and through. It's got that old flavour. It's got that nice SEM filter in there. But it's a modern synth. It's got it's got a lot of modern stuff going on in there as well. We've got a really nice mod matrix. I think there's 19 mod slots in there. Tons of destinations, tons of sources. Two LFOs, got a mono LFO and a poly LFO, 2 envelopes as well over here, effects section, and one really, really nice thing on this that we've not had before on an Oberheim, we've got the cross mod, of course. Now this is something you would expect to see, but with this synth, it's thru-zero FM. So that actually makes quite a difference to the way that the FM kind of reacts. It keeps your FM in tune, and it's a really nice sounding thing.
Very much like the sort of Take-5 sort of form factor.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can see there is a lot kind of in common with the Take-5 in terms of the chassis, the size, the fact we've got 44 keys. It's a Fatar sort of 3.5 octave key mechanism. Feels great, of course. There's sort of some commonality there, but of course the top panel is quite different, and the voicing of it, the filter, the way that the oscillators are configured as well is quite different. That's TEO in a nutshell. We should probably have a bit of a listen to some of it as well. So we've got to start off with it's an Oberheim style patch, and as soon as you kind of hear this sort of it's just got that sweet Oberheim sound. Of course, you've got your velocity on the key mech, and then with the aftertouch in there as well.
Is that mono aftertouch or poly aftertouch?
It's mono aftertouch from the key mech here, yeah. And then we'll switch through to a typical kind of, again, this kind of nice sort of sound that you expect to hear from an Oberheim style synth. And then if we can switch through to stuff like this. This one is a bit different. This is a bit more of a modern sounding patch. Really big, nice and bright. So we've got quite a lot of stuff going on. Let's see if we can get to. Oh yeah, so this one is to meter bells, and this I've got to play it, but.
So presumably that's the X mod in full effect.
We've got FM in full effect here. So yeah. So yeah, I mean that sort of stuff. This one, I found this last night, and I found this really fascinating because if we just have a listen to it, it sounds like you've got a really nice kind of modulated LFO speed. But then when I was exploring the LFOs in the patch, I couldn't find any connection there. And actually, that sound is coming from the ring mod, which is basically kind of an amplitude modulation effect that we've got in here, and a bit of envelope. Yeah, envelope on the time there, just giving that nice kind of really lovely kind of flavour to it. So yes, I mean it's it's got a lot of different sounds in there. It's sounding really lovely. Maybe if
you've gone for classic Oberheim.
Oh, of course, it's got to have the blue lines on there, hasn't it? Of course,
nice.
Maybe if I'll just go to a basic patch, so we'll just get to let's see. We'll go to a basic patch, and I'll bring up just the voice volume for this while we're demoing. So just a single oscillator, sawtooth, of course, but I just want to have a listen to the filter. So it's a 2-pole SEM filter. It's essentially the SEM filter that Tom designed back in '74 for the SEM module. And so you've got your low pass there. It's state variable.
So is that a modulatable
absolutely
mode as well?
Yeah. So you can modulate this through from notch, getting that lovely kind of phase. Yeah, me too. It's just really lovely. And then back into high pass. So, the state variable side is really nice. We can switch in a band pass as well. That's here in the program menu. And if we go to filter band pass here, you can turn that on. Now you've got a band pass in there. Let's get the resonance up, because this, I think, is where the SEM filter has got that resonance. It just makes all the difference. And it's just really lovely. I mean, if we go back down to low pass, get the resonance right up. It's got it there, it really has. And of course, that means, you can do typical kind of cliche patches like the, that sort of thing. You've got to do that.
I'm surprised it wasn't your first one, to be fair, Chris.
I was tempted, but I thought, no, I'll hold that back until we talk about the filter. So, so the filter is really kind of, for me, where the magic happens on here. But the oscillators as well, they're quite interesting. So we've got, with the oscillator section, we've got 2 oscillators, of course. Frequency controls for both, as you would expect. Pulse width as well, which is common at this point. But again, if I just go to a basic patch, but then we've got switching for the oscillators. Now, if you're kind of a little bit familiar with the OB6, you've got the ability to kind of continuously vary the wave shape. With this one, it's a switch in and switch out system.
Right.
So obviously, we can start off with our saw. We can start off with that. But then we can also add the square and also add the triangle. So you can get
that sounds like it's driving the filter a bit harder as well.
Well, it's obviously we've got a bit more volume coming out of there. That's sort of that's gaining itself up a bit with that. And so you can have any combination of which one you want. So we've got square and triangle here. Of course, got the pulse width. That was, you can't see this behind the camera. That was a typical Nick Bat face.
I made the pulse width face.
Yeah, of course. Now, obviously, you can see on here we don't have a mixer specifically, but if we just press and hold oscillator 1 switch, then you get the oscillator 1 level here. So you can, you have basically got a mixer here.
But it's just not.
It's just not in kind of mixer form.
It's fairly tightly packed, isn't it?
Exactly.
So it'd be hard to fit that in, I guess.
We've kept the panel as kind of, as spacious as possible, but it's still got a lot of, stuff in. Obviously, that's really useful from mixing your oscillators together, and you've got that also for the sub as well. It's got a sub oscillator which you can, level up, and the noise as well. So you can do all of that stuff. But it's also the same for, let's go back to the pulse width. So if I press the pulse width and hold it down, I can change the pulse width individually for oscillator 1, and then I can go to...
the pulse width or the pulse level?
The pulse width.
Right,
not the levels. The levels are just coming out as a volume.
It's handy shortcuts. They look
absolutely. So that's... and if I do the same now for oscillator 2, and actually let's bring it in so we can hear it. Now this acts as an offset for the 2. So I think I might have gone a bit low on that one.
Right, so you get cross. Yeah.
So you do have independent pulse width control there. It's just basically holding down the bottom and then using the value pot up here. So that's oscillators, filters. In terms of the LFOs, as I say, it's pretty straightforward. We've got a mono LFO and a poly LFO. So of course we've got one per voice on the poly. We've also, I've got. So I really enjoy this on on both this and actually quite a lot of the sequential synths, as well as the Oberheim, the TEO-5. The fact you've got dedicated buttons for destinations for the LFO. So if I want to put the LFO to the cutoff, I just hold destination.
All right, so dynamic mod matrix.
And it's there straight away. It's the same on the poly as well. So maybe we just put that onto the pitch here and just add an amount. It's going to sound weird, but
Does it do unipolar square wave on the pitch, because that's often a...
Yes, it does. In
good.
fact, I did a patch. I think I got a patch on here from last night. Maybe it's this one.
That's the one.
Yeah, and that one I've actually set, so I think I've got LFO1 on a square doing one oscillator, LFO2 doing the other oscillator, so you can get a bit of harmony from that as well.
Nice.
Which was quite nice. Great LFO section. Mod matrix here as well. And again, this really lovely way of saying, okay, well, if I want the, let's say, the frequency of oscillator 2, FM, and we want to send that to the frequency of oscillator 1, there you go, that's done. So it's just a case of holding this, choosing your source, choosing your destination, it's done. We can add an amount to it, and this is going to sound weird, but, or maybe not.
Almost like sync, isn't it? That's nice, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, talking of sync, we've got sync on there as well, of course.
What a team.
Yeah, we've done this before, haven't we? Yeah. So as I say, we've got sync on there. But what I think is quite interesting, I'll see if I can find this patch that I made, just to explain a little bit about the exponential FM versus the thru-zero stuff that's on here. So, I mean, it's a bit of science involved with all of this, but basically, if you're familiar with the the OBX8 and the cross mod on there, on the OB6 as well, the cross mod on there, and of course on the sequentials, the Prophet 5s and that sort of stuff, you've got exponential FM, and that's basically just taking oscillator 2 and modulating oscillator 1 with it, and it doesn't go through zero. And what that means is as the kind of the how do I explain it? This is where it gets a bit technical, but basically as the sort of the spread gets wide, it can't get past zero. And so you'll go up in pitch, but you can't get down far enough. And what you wind up with, as in I've got the exponential on here, so if it's just got two triangles there, but if I just push this through, you'll hear the tuning. So that's kind of typical kind of exponential sort of FM
clangorous
sound. Yeah, exactly,
unpleasant.
and it's great. Well, I don't know, I quite like it personally.
Atonal.
Yeah, it's atonal. But it just takes you into that inharmonic kind of place. Whereas if you do the same thing with the thru-zero...
Yeah, it's got a sort of... It's more sympathetic, isn't
exactly, yeah. And the other interesting thing, of course, is, we've got VCOs in here, so they're not digital sine waves or anything like that. We've got VCOs with triangle sawtooth square waves. So, it's not... it's not a DX7 sort of FM sound, but... and the fact it's also... It's analog. It does mean you can kind of have the nice tuned bit, but when you get to the very top end, you can push it into that kind of that sort of inharmonic space as well. So that's it. You've got your exponential. If you want to set that up, and just set that up in the mod matrix again using oscillator 2 to modulate oscillator 1.
Is there the effects are kind of probably classic sequential slash I suppose they are sequential slash Oberheim, but so twin effects like you usually have.
Yeah, for sure.
How much similarity is there with OB6?
Well, okay, so the OB6 I think has got a different set of effects on it than the
yes, that's true.
Yeah,
it's older synth though, isn't it?
Yeah. On the TEO, we share the effects really with the TEO and the TEO-5. They're the ones you'll find, including the ones that came with the TEO-5's version 2.0 firmware. So, the lo-fi, and I can't remember what the other effects
No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was thinking more in terms of just the synth generally, because essentially you're getting the character.
Yeah,
and one extra voice and one less voice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with this. Obviously, with the modulation matrix, there's different destinations. There's a bit more to it in terms of what you can connect to where. With the OB6, of course, It's a slightly different kind of build inside. There are voice cards in there with discrete components building the oscillators.
Right. Yeah.
The filters, very similar. I mean, it's using the same components essentially. It is that SEM filter that's in there that Tom sort of worked with Dave with on the OB6, and obviously Tom's worked with the guys in San Francisco for TEO-5 as well. But yeah, you get your extra voice there. And also the OB6, it's very much a kind of what you see is what you get panel.
Right, because you've got more room on it.
Yeah, there's no kind of menu diving at all. Not that there's a great deal on here.
Well, the shortcut stuff looks like it makes a lot of sense.
The shortcut stuff does, but you have got the program page here as well, and you get a lot of extra stuff. So, you've got enough on the top panel to get great sounds, but you've got a lot more in here as well that you can kind of access and play around with. Delays for the envelopes, envelope repeating, slew for the LFOs, resets, all the kind of stuff you would expect to see. And also a particular favourite of mine, and it would be remiss of me not to mention it, but we've got micro-tuning scales in here as well, and you can save those per patch.
Well, that's useful.
Although,
do you honestly know anybody who plays microtonally tuned
Are you
music?
serious, Nick? Right, how long can this video be? Because it's my world these days.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And it has been for a long time.
I do apologise.
It's been for a long time, to be honest.
I'm just a traditionalist.
Well, you stick to your 12, and I'll go with the infinite notes in between. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so on the effects side of things, I'll just get an arpeggiator held on here. You've got different delays. You've got bucket brigade delays.
These are DSP, aren't they?
Yeah. Tape-based delays as well. And they can get pretty fast. Different tapes, chorus, flanger, phaser.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, it's lovely. And actually the phaser and also the ring modulator, they are modelled on Tom's original products as well. On his original phaser, and of course the first thing he ever made, which was the ring modulator. And of course, the ring modulator's in here as well. Before that one, obviously we've got a second filter. We've got the high pass filter. That's a DSP based filter as opposed to the analog that you get from the SEM here. But still, it's there. It's useful. It's great. Distortion. The ring mod, rotary speaker, which I think is superb as well, and there's the lo-fi, and the lo-fi is giving you that kind of nice wow and flutter tape warble and a bit of distortion and kind of imperfection.
And presumably some reverb and stuff in there as well. Is that
the
reverb
reverbs, it's actually got a dedicated reverb. So you've got two effects, one of which is dedicated to reverb, and this top effect is kind of the multi-effects, if you like.
Got you.
But then the reverb, underneath. And I think the reverb sounds really lovely with this synth because, I'm sort of scratching my head as to why. Perhaps because it's a 2-pole instead of a 4-pole.
Cleaner.
It's cleaner hitting the reverb, and there's a little bit more kind of synth, but sort of pared back compared to like a 4-pole in there. So that's pretty much it really.
Nice.
I mean, it's a lovely thing. I must say, I've obviously, it's really the first synth I've kind of had from before release. And from Oberheim or Sequential, obviously since the Focusrite group, since we joined forces with Sequential, I put it on the desk, and within a couple of minutes, I was thinking, this is a really special one, and it's down.
There's
to
something
that
about that OB. Where you it's like listening to an old valve radio that you maybe your mum used to have on the background. Suddenly you just go, oh. It's like
it's familiar.
It's familiar to it as well. Yeah.
I think that's it. You're right. It's nostalgic. It's familiar. It sounds great. I mean, it's familiar for a reason. It was it's famous for a reason. But with the TEO-5, all that kind of modern aesthetic that's in there as well just makes it really the whole package, I'd say.
So when's this coming out?
So we should start to see this hitting the stores hopefully early July, around about that sort of time, July. And in terms of price, in dollars, it's going to be $14.99.
Great. Chris, thank you so much for showing us.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.